Everyone, welcome back to Affirmative Reaction here on SiriusXM Progress Channel 127. I'm your host, Xjore Olivares. Now, it's insane to me, Chris Colfer, that I have been a fan of yours for 10 years. Can you think about that?
Oh my God.
How quickly 10 years flies by, because everybody knows Chris as the Golden Globe winning actor, best known from Glee, nominated for several awards for that role. And also now, New York Times bestselling author, literally 15th book is
15.
what we're about to talk about today.
Yeah.
And just the themes that have come across in your career, the themes that are coming across in the work that you do. And I love the opportunity to be able to talk to another person who is so unabashedly themselves and so authentic in the life that you've chosen to live, both in private and in public. And I'm glad that we can do this as two queer people and just living in
and
our...
not have stones be thrown at us.
Right.
Yeah.
Depending on
What
where
country we're in.
what
Right.
country we're in, and what political system we're under.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to welcome Chris to talk about literally the first part of a new series that you're working on called A Tale of Magic. After working on, 12 books for the Land of Stories series, and on top of that, the 2 young adult books that you did. In addition, literally, you've been busy longer than anybody else has been busy.
I sound so pretentious.
No, not at all. The thing that I love is somebody who has had the opportunity to see all parts of their creativity and all parts of their talent tested and also just showcase, because it goes to show people who, depending on kind of where they are in their life, that sometimes it's not always the same thing you've been working on. Sometimes you want to write books, and sometimes you want to be on TV, and sometimes you want to be in movies. It's a chance to really allow yourself to grow in ways that maybe you haven't had a chance to do before. So I'm glad that we could talk about this book and just talk about a few other things. So thanks for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me.
When you go through your creative process, is it stuff that's been with you for a long time? Is it stuff that just newly resurfaces? Where does the motivation for, especially something like A Tale of Magic, where does it come from?
Oh, it comes from many places. Some of it has been with me since I was a small child, and a lot of it is inspired by current events. With the Land of Story series, that was something that I started writing, or at least tried to write, when I was in elementary school. And it kind of became a life mission to get that out into the world. Like I can't exactly describe it really, except it was just this need. And then luckily I won the lottery essentially and got on Glee and had all these opportunities to write a book, and everyone wanted me to do an autobiography, but I said, I'm 19. I don't think that's a good idea. But I said, I have this children's book that I've always wanted to write. And luckily I found a good home for it, and it exploded. And now I'm writing the prequel series for it. And this one, it's A Tale of Magic, which it acts as a prequel, but you do not have to have any prior knowledge whatsoever. And I'm actually really hoping people who might be new to me as an author start with this book. And it was very much inspired by the political climate of today, and just the prejudice and oppression that we see every day on the news. And I did not make things easy for myself, because this should have been a very easy project. Writing a prequel to a best-selling series, it's easy. You describe what the life of the adults was like before we met them, and it just turned into something so much more than that. I just felt this need to create a story for all the kids out there that are in all corners of the world that are scared and don't know how to fight the prejudice and oppression that is aimed at them. And so here we are.
I do love that it's children's book, and it's for younger generations, because it not only plays to the thoughts and feelings that we've all had growing up, but it allows them to be introduced to themes that they're going to know about when they're adults. Or it's certain, like my friends and I always talk about, man, adulting sucks, because you become aware of all the things that you never thought were possible, because you do live in this make-believe world that you allow yourself to run, be king and queen of.
Yeah, it's like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. We see behind the curtain. We know who the wizard, who he really is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious because of that, because of the emphasis on making this for younger readers. How important is it for you to make sure that audience is there for you and for the work that you're creating?
Well, I think first off, it is so important that children and young people whatever your definition of young people is, have something where they can escape full-heartedly into. For me, if I didn't have the Harry Potter series when I was a kid, I do not know how I would have survived 9/11. Watching that on the news every day, I don't know how I would have survived being bullied at school if I didn't have that mental recess. I think of all the subliminal seeds are planted into my head by fantasy that I didn't know what. I didn't know what the story was actually an allegory to at the time, but it did plant the seeds in me, so I would know so I would be prepared later in life when I actually saw it myself. I use Harry Potter as an example because that's usually a good example to use.
usually there's somebody in the world who's probably heard it.
Yeah, right. People have heard of it. But I mean, like there are themes of racism and the class system
and otherism, like where you realize, oh wow, I'm different from everybody else.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That you don't think about when you're reading it as a kid, but then when you suddenly face that as an adult, you've already formed an opinion without realizing it. And I think if it weren't for those seeds, that I think we need more of those seeds now so we can raise kids to be more curious and more compassionate.
It is a prequel series, and it's something that is starting its brand new. It's a new series line, and so we're introduced to this heroine, Bristol Evergreen. Where does Bristol come from? Where did that kernel come from in your head that made you think this is the person that I want to base this off of?
Oh gosh, before I write anything, I see it as a trailer, like a movie trailer in my brain first, and then the hard part is then connecting all those images together in a story. I actually had some hesitation about writing with a female lead, because I didn't know in this day and age if that would be accepted. If as a man I could write about a young woman and her issues with sexism and whatnot, or if that would even be accepted by librarians and teachers and whatnot. But I think she just represents the ultimate example of oppression. She's a little girl who's very curious, very smart, and she lives in a country where it is illegal for women to read, and so she gets a job as a maid at her local library just so she can be around books. And to me, I think we are all Bristol Evergreen in some way.
Sure.
We all have to. We all have to get creative about how we nourish ourselves and feed our imaginations and our curiosities, and so she just kind of appeared to me and I hate to sound like spacey, but kind of like a vision. I had this vision of this little girl getting ready for school and looking at herself in the mirror and just despising the degrading uniform that she was forced to wear every day.
Yeah.
And that's how she came to be.
I mean, it's crazy because when you think about it, especially with the themes of like very Handmaid's Tale-esque, where you realize like, oh, you can't read, and the reason you can't read is because it's against the law, and it's against the law to the point where something bad might happen to you for doing something so basic as just wanting to read.
Right.
And I think, especially when you think about today's political climate, just like certain basic things for us as queer people, where we took something for granted several years ago when it was a different administration. Now we're dealing with something else, and it's like something so just an everyday thing that we do, and we do kind of without even focusing on it. And now, especially like in Bristol's case in the book, like now you're definitely going to be ostracized for this.
Yeah.
And not only ostracized, but punished. And there's going to be several consequences that are going to just make your life worse.
Yeah. Everything, if I can, honestly, everything in this book is an allegory for being gay. Everything. And like you said, like she's denied that very basic thing, that wanting to read, that's an allegory for just wanting to love. Magic is one of the opening lines of the book is magic is not a choice. And you don't have to think too hard to think about where I got that one. But I really hope that, and I might actually, I might get, although there are gay characters in the series that have not realized that they're gay yet. I imagine I might get some criticism because I did not. I almost took like a very, very queer topic and put it with straight characters in the first reaction to it. But I think that's in some parts of the world, in some countries where I'm published, it's illegal to be gay.
I was going to say, published in 35 different countries. I
Right.
can only imagine
Right.
how queer people get to kind of roam the world in those sections.
Exactly.
And it might not be as easy as we would want it to be.
So you got to be a strategic storyteller to get the stories that you want across those borders.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I have some books, and I know that I definitely when I was on Glee, like I was edited out of the show in some countries.
Oh shit! I wouldn't have thought about that.
Yeah, there are some episodes that are 5 minutes long because they edit out me from everything.
Wow.
So yeah, you have to really be strategic about how you tell stories these days.
But think about the sort of burden that is as an openly gay writer, like just the realization you had about like, oh, I wonder if people are going to feel a certain way because I didn't make certain things overtly gay. It's like there are not that many authors who have that who feel compelled to do that, and I'm curious that you do, because I think the fact that it clearly is an allegory for queerness, and that it is coming from the perspective of somebody who has the lived experience of being gay, I don't think that's something that you have to worry about, because it still comes across in the work that you do that what you're doing is in celebration of yourself. And,
thank you.
And the people who've been fans of yours for quite some time.
Oh, well, that's a relief. Thank you.
No, but because when you think about other people in kind of when they put pen to paper, everybody does bring their lived experience. Everyone is told kind of write what you know, and you know something very specific, and you know that life. And so I think, just to kind of go along with this theme, is it easy to, it must be incredibly hard to remove just queerness and remove that part of yourself when writing a book that might not necessarily be geared towards queer readers, but it's for everybody. Like I find it hard for myself to separate queerness from all that I do, and I'm wondering if that's the same, if it's just as difficult for you too.
It can be. It just kind of depends on where I'm at. I think it's more something that I think that gets projected on me than I actually like. That's in my everyday to day life. That I don't think like, oh, I'm queerly eating this sandwich. I'm going to this queer. I think I'm just eating the sandwich, but someone else is like, oh, look at that guy eating the sandwich. Yeah, no. I mean, it's interesting. I think.
Particularly because the book is coming out, because of what the book explores and the time that it's coming out, and what we're witnessing and what we're experiencing as queer people.
Right, exactly. And I think it's I think it's there's never a bad time to have a book that has a little allegory that could help some LGBT people along the way.
Do you, and this might be kind of a dumb question, but do you believe in magic in some sense?
Oh my gosh.
Like not necessarily what would be explored in A Tale of Magic, but just what that word is for your own definition of it. Do you believe it exists?
I want it to. I desperately want it to. I think, unfortunately, ever since I was a kid, I've been in a state of mourning since I realized that like the magic in The Wizard of Oz or Harry Potter does not exist. But I want it to, and I mean, sometimes I pretend. Sometimes I pretend, that there are witches in the world, and it's good for the career, to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
Not that I don't practice black magic or anything like that, but I do.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I believe in aliens. I believe in the Loch Ness monster. I believe in a lot of things people tell me not to believe in. Probably because I believed in myself when everyone told me I shouldn't believe in myself. So maybe they're wrong about a lot of things.
But I love that all comes back to those are things that we all believe when we're younger and when we're kids, and we want to think that there's witches and goblins and this secret portal that if we enter, if we pull a book from the library, this door is going to open and this magical world we've always envisioned is going to show up. And I love that because I feel like we never ever stop being kids. And I think that's the beauty of the books that you've had a chance to write, in that you don't necessarily have to be younger generations. You can be older generations, because we all want to believe in magic, and we all want to believe that there's a world out there for us where we can fly and, live underwater and do the things that we want to do, especially when we think just how tough regular life is. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I love this idea of magic and just being able to explore this life, but also there's explorations of friendship and kind of who Bristol meets and how they uplift each other, because I think because you talked about how it's an allegory for gayness or being queer, chosen family, and who do we surround ourselves with, and how we use our friendships to kind of pick ourselves up and go along in this journey. If you can, talk about the friendship aspect of the book and how that's been something that you've explored multiple times before in the stuff that you've done.
Oh my gosh! Well, I think people like RuPaul will explain it much better than I ever could. But it is really such a blessing when you're part of the LGBT community, because you do get to choose your family, and we, because of the way the world is in, we're all so. We can be all really, really wounded from the way that we are raised, and from the environments that we come from, and it is a little magical when we finally find each other and we finally establish our own tribes, and we get to be who we actually are, and we don't, it's not like Christmas or Thanksgiving when we put up a front, we try not to be as effeminate, or try not to be as crass or whatnot. Yeah, and it was important to me because I certainly found my tribe in Los Angeles, and I think I wish kids could understand that. I think if they knew the love that is out there and that is waiting for them, I think it would help. It would help. It helped them so much, wherever they are, wherever they're at.
Yeah. So Bristol and others within the Southern Kingdom, which is the realm where they live in, it to some extent you can call it bullying, what they're undergoing, where you're told as because of who you are, you can't do X, Y, Z. And you've talked openly about your experiences with bullying, and I know every queer person in my life has had those moments. Is this an opportunity, especially writing? Is it still therapeutic for you to be able to do that and express yourself in a way that nobody can really harm you in that way? Because this is wholly yours. This is wholly your thoughts. This is wholly your imagination of magic. I can see that as being somewhat cathartic.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always therapeutic to write a story where the bad people actually lose in the end. That's always very, very, and the good people triumph. I don't really. It's interesting. I don't. The bullying thing was so much part of my life because of Glee, but I'm almost at a place now where I feel like I have to stop talking about that, because I've told millions and millions of kids around the world that you will get to a point in your life where it's not a part of your life anymore. You get to move on, and sometimes I worry that they look at me and they see me talking about it so much and being asked about it so much that it doesn't really leave my life. So I kind of feel almost a little hypocritical about that. So I don't try to. That's really not a theme that I try to incorporate in my writing.
But the opportunity for you who still believes in magic and who remembers that kid growing up who had all these ideas as a kid and is now getting the chance to publish them and put them out for the world. Like, that must be one of those things where you're like, you know what? Fuck everybody else who had all those issues with me in the past, because the level of success and the level of allowing yourself to live what you wanted to live, it's happening.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I don't know. I guess I try to think of the future more than I think of the past, because you can't. There's nothing I can change. There's nothing I can correct. But I think that time in your life, I think holding on to that magic is such a secret weapon, because if you can hold on to that magic, if you can hold on to that hope, if you can hold on to that that curiosity. Sorry, I keep using that word. Then
we're all curious, though.
Right. Life is going to be so much more meaningful and rewarding for you.
And we started the interview talking about how the fact that I've known of you for 10 years is because
gosh.
that's when Glee first premiered, and that's when the world became familiar with your artistry. And I'm curious for you, when you think about that, when you think about the fact that you made it easier for people like me and for other fans of the show to be who we wanted to be, because you were allowed to be who you wanted to be.
Oh, thank you.
Do you ever, how many times do you not hear stories from people who say thank you, or that they appreciated the fact that you were so open and honest, because it gave them the same right?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I hear about it constantly. The letters that I received then, I still receive. And I receive them from people all around the world, and in places where gay people are hunted, essentially. And it means the world. And it was not an easy process for me. I definitely had I kind of put on a poker face through that whole experience. Because I literally was basically a terrified, closeted farm boy that was overnight became the most famous gay teenager in the world, and there were a lot of scary times that came with that. There were death threats. There were there were things I don't even want to get into that made it a very, very difficult experience. But very much kind of like that drive that I don't know where it came from. That drive to write and to get my books out. I just this voice inside of me said, no, be honest. It's going to help people. It's going to help people. And I'm so glad I listened to it. It was not easy to listen to it. It was, like I said, it was a really, really challenging time. But hearing that made that whole experience worth it. Yeah, thank you.
There's a lot of people who want to say, because our time is short, and I want to make sure I ask this question, because on Twitter everybody has this thing where they say, you know what, the Glee covers are better than some of the originals that are out there.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm curious, what is
circumstantial?
what is still one of your favorite songs that you sang during that show?
Oh my God.
Or what maybe not, maybe if you can't think of your favorite, because I'm sure there's quite a few, because it ran for several seasons, but what gives you the best memory of that time of your life?
Oh, probably probably the episode that I got to write, and I got to sing with June Squibb. I did we did a Lucky Star, and I got to fly around as Peter Pan. That was really special. That was pretty. That was because that was just a lifelong goal. I always wanted to be in a harness
if
flying
you're talking
around.
About magic.
Yeah, right.
How do you not want to fly?
Yeah. But probably Defying Gravity. I think that's the honest answer, because that was such an anthem for me growing up, and to finally. Sometimes people associate me with a song more than they associate Elphaba, Yeah. So that was quite a win for me. I wish I had been a better singer when I did it. But like I said earlier, you can't go back.
Yeah. Well, if you believe in magic, if as much as everybody else does, be sure to pick up A Tale of Magic, the latest from Chris Colfer, the 15th book, which is insane, sir.
So obnoxious.
Not at all. You're doing what I'd like to say is the Lord's work, because you are allowing yourself to really hold true to what you know you're capable of doing. So thank you for joining me, and
gosh,
thanks
thank
for all
you
that
so